My name is Sharon. I am a baby boomer, which means I was raised in the 50s. I came from a Christian home. I was very secure. I knew my parents were madly in love, and that if I just followed their pattern, my life was going to turn out great. I really felt everything was wonderful in our life until age 25. I had gotten married at 22. 3 years later, I found a lump in my neck, went in to have surgery. The doctor was convinced it was just going to be a calcified lymph gland and be easily removed. But when I came out of surgery, I was told that the pathologist who was in surgery was sure it was malignant. And for the first time in my life, I felt hopelessness. And I almost wanted to say to God, these things don't happen to the Larkin family. What are you doing this? It's got to be a mistake. We're living for you and things are supposed to be fine. 3 days later, when the frozen section came back, it was benign. The oncologist said that was very unusual, but I felt it was just God had changed the biopsy, that because I'd asked for just enough years to put my husband through seminary, that now I was on borrowed time for the deal I'd made with God. 3 years later, when I was pregnant with my first child, I had a reoccurrence. And I did not tell my husband, I didn't tell my parents, I didn't tell anybody because I was afraid that they may have me go through a procedure or something that would be detrimental to the pregnancy. So that brought that hopelessness back again. Am I going to live to raise my children? And for years I battled with that feeling, just fear and anxiety and a feeling of hopelessness. That same year, things seemed that they were changing in my marriage. My husband was angry. He seemed to be angry at me. And when I'd ask him why he was angry, he'd say he wasn't. He seemed depressed. I was finding discrepancies in things he told me. I actually believed he was lying to me. Money started disappearing out of our account. This went on for years and years and years until finally I confronted him over and over, and he said that I was crazy, that I was suspicious for no reason, that he was a godly man, that he would never be unfaithful, that he wasn't lying, that I was just confused. He even one time said to me, "What did your parents do to screw you up so bad that you're so suspicious?" I thought, what? I came from a great home. What are you talking about? And finally I said, we're going to go to counseling. And he refused. And then I said, either we go to counseling or we're separating. So that began 5 months of counseling. But then one day, on a Monday, when we had our counseling scheduled for that afternoon, I caught him on the phone with his lover of 18 years, his male lover. And my world came apart. I felt hopeless. I was just shocked. I believed that something was going on. I didn't believe that. There were times I thought, is he having an affair? And surely not. Of course, I believed it was with a woman if it was happening, but I couldn't figure out who it would be. And that day, I can actually say my whole world just crumbled. He moved out. That was 15 years ago. I was totally devastated and wondering, how am I going to provide now for my children? I had 2 kids in college. One was in her senior year, and my son was in his sophomore year. I didn't know if I'd be able to keep the home. I'd gone back to work to put them through school, and it was taking every penny of my salary plus $500 from each grandparent to pay the $3,400 bill to Azusa Pacific University. But the point of all of this is how God provided. Shortly after he left, within days, my college roommate from Biola flew down from up north. And one of the things she said to me is, "Are you too proud to beg?" I said, "Beg? Who am I going to beg from and for what?" She said, "You need to go to the president of the university and tell them your situation." Well, he knew me personally because I was on the parent board. And I went out there and I just told him what I'd found out, what my husband had been involved in. I didn't know how I could pay my bill to this college because now I had to pay to support us. And he said, "Don't worry, your children are covered for the rest of the year." My ex-husband had been court-ordered to pay me a monthly amount to pay off a large debt, medical bill of his that I paid off, and he took me back to court to try to have that reneged. And that day, my children said to me, "Mom, just sign it to be done with him." I didn't feel it was fair. I didn't feel it was fair to me. I didn't feel it was fair to my children. And I didn't know how I was going to handle it without the money. But we prayed right there in the room with the attorney, and my brother said he thought I should honor my children's request, and I signed the paper. Well, a few months before that, my school district had sent out a letter to people who had worked for other districts before the current district I was working for and had not been given credit for the years they taught before. I was one of those people, because if you'd gone more than 10 years without teaching, they didn't give you the credit. Well, they sent this survey out and said, fill this out and maybe you'll qualify for one or more of your years. Well, I filled it out thinking wouldn't come to anything. That day, when we walked down the steps of the courthouse, I called the school district and I said, I want to know the results of that survey. And the lady said, ma'am, you're going to get that in the mail soon. I said, could you please just check and see if it made any difference for Sharon Hicks? I waited and waited and waited. Finally, she comes back to the line and said, well, congratulations, Sharon Hicks, you're the grand prize winner. I said, what'd I win? I've never won anything in my life. She goes, it made the biggest difference for you than any teacher in the district because you had all the education to get to the last column, but not the years. They gave me all 6 years. It was the exact amount that my husband had taken away from in court that day. Just another time that God said, it's not hopeless. I am your hope. Just let me show you. So what have I learned through all this? I've learned that my hope is in Christ and that He will be there for me. He was every step of the way. He became a husband to me. He became a father to my children. He provided everything. And it wasn't even dependent on me putting that hope in Him. I felt hopeless. That is a true emotion, but our emotions lie to us all the time. Even when it felt hopeless, there was hope because Christ is our hope. It tells us in Psalms that He is our hope. And He has proven Himself over and over to me again. And sometimes I have to learn that lesson again. I've been through other hardships since then, the death of a child, a grandchild, the death of both my parents. And there were times I felt hopeless. And I'd have to go back and say, and I even go back and relive those times. What happened when God gave you that exact amount to replace the money you spent on your house? Think about the time He provided the money when you had lost money in court, that same exact amount. That God is in all the details and He is our hope. The only hopelessness is to be without Christ. That's the only hopelessness.